What did we witness last night? I don't know about you. I had no idea a match like that was about to unfold. 5 goals, 5 disallowed goals, 2 red cards. Chelsea end Tottenham's unbeaten start, a 4-1 win in the end. You ever seen a crazier game?
No, I've never seen a probably greater acts of self-harm as Tottenham visited upon themselves.
Yeah.
From having complete control of the game to, for whatever reason, seeming to cede it back to Chelsea, give them their head, and then proceed to lose their minds. And I do think that some of the things that Ange Postecoglou said after the game were admirable. I'm not entirely sure. What he's doing is very clever. He is, like I've said previously, he is the light to everyone else's dark. Specifically in the age of Conte, where ultimately Spurs would have banked up with 11 players, let alone 9, and he won't do that, and he won't make that position because he knows it carries a certain particular reaction from the Tottenham fan base. Is there an argument to say that banking up, and because Chelsea were poor, I don't care if Chelsea winning 4-1 yesterday, they were a poor side right now, and I know that flies in the face of me saying they're going to win the league in 3 years' time with whoever is in situ, but the point is that would it have been more commendable for Tottenham Hotspur to come out of that game with 9 men banking up at the back, not allowing Chelsea to create anything because they didn't create that much anyway, and come out with a point? Or was there more nobility in saying, no, sod that, I'm going to play the way I want to? And I know he made his observations about if we went down to 5, mate, we'd have a crack.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
I do and I don't. I think it's playing to a certain gallery, but most of what comes out of Ange Postecoglou's mouth I'm an admirer of, but if I get
what
too...
What gallery is he playing to?
Well, I think he's playing to the gallery of everybody seeing Arteta's rant, so he says the opposite. And I think there's some of what he says he actually believes, but I also think he's playing a particular role, which is, I am a person that's sensible and pragmatic. And with the Tottenham fans, he's saying, you've had 2 or 3 years of a brand of football that nobody wants in this ground. I'm going to give you something different. But then so did Aussie Ardiles once, and they got beat 5-4s and 6-3s and whatever else.
I don't look for anything other than Ange believes what he says. This is how I play. This is how I want the game to be played by my team, which was once Celtic and is now Tottenham. This is how I want my boys to play. And it's as simple as that.
And it's a principle that he, at this moment in time, is able to stick to because he's come off the back of 11 games or however many it was before, 10 games before this, unbeaten.
Yeah.
They've gotten beaten yesterday. Now, entirely explainable. What's not explainable is the combustibility of certain players on the pitch and the occasion which Tottenham had control of suddenly been wrestled away from them and some ridiculousness on the pitch from certain players. And, of course, you've then got the added spice of Maddison being injured. You've got the other centre-back being injured. I think that I'm inclined to agree with you that most of what Ange Postecoglou says he believes in, but there is always, even if you're Alex Ferguson at the top of your game, there's always an element of pragmatism at times. We can all be idealists. We can all say, this is what I'm going to do. But when it comes down to it, you're in a business of winning. And no one will say to you, well, that was a noble effort.
But let me remind you, you were in this very studio with me when they were all phoning in about cannot abide the way Conte has got Tottenham playing. Yeah, and before that, Mourinho. They didn't like Mourinho, many of them either. So we'll get to that the other side of the break.
But that's my point precisely.
But here's the thing though, Simon, and I'm with you on this. I found Chelsea... uninspiring, uninteresting. I do not see anything to get excited about Chelsea, although Pochettino says differently.
I think we deserve to win. We forced them to make too many mistakes. I think that Tottenham was better in the first 15 minutes, and then I think we matched the game, and I think our performance was good and start to force to make the mistake. I think everything that you can see, I think during the game, I think was fair. That is why 4-1, I think is overall, I think the performance was good.
All right, so that's Mauricio's view on it. But this morning, many observers and many people certainly in this building thought that even losing 4-1, the Tottenham outlook was much better than the Chelsea outlook. The Tottenham performance was much more absorbing and believable and plausible than the Chelsea one.
Yes, but you've got to give it context. Chelsea are a side that's not full of confidence at this moment in time for whatever reason. You've got players out there that have been bought for 80 million quid that don't look like a trap a bag of cement. You've got players out there that aren't performing at the level that their price tag suggests they should. Whereas Tottenham on the opposite side of that, they've got this Ange Postecoglou effect, which is basically he's not Conte. He's not Mourinho. He's not dark. He's not prepared to play a brand of football which is unappealing. In the end, he's going to have to play a brand of football that becomes a consistent winning football formula, because the honeymoon of doing really well, which, by the way, he deserves and Tottenham fans should appreciate, is going to be superseded at some point by the necessity of winning things, whether winning things qualifies for the top 4. Do I think Tottenham will get in the top 4? Yes, I do this year, because of the points tally they've got so far. And
you think Tottenham will be top 4?
Well, I do, yeah. I think if you've got 26 points, 11 games into a season, and you require 71 to get into a Champions League spot, which is atypically the rule of thumb, you'd have to be really poor for significant parts of the season not to pick up the points that you need.
Yeah.
So I think they've given themselves a good opportunity, and how they bounce back from the defeat on yesterday will be easy, because they'll look at the circumstances. They'll say that we lost our centre-back, we lost another centre-back, we lost our creative midfield player, we lost another player getting sent off. So we had all the disadvantage against ourselves.
But just to be clear, the Postecoglou way, Simon, naive or refreshing?
I think it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if there's a part of me that always wants the best form of defence is attack.
Yeah.
But in football terms, that probably, in the end, is not going to pay you off, specifically if you're going into a situation where you've got 9 players and you are territorially disadvantaged by the way that you play. You're going to concede goals. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah,
they're not
exactly.
months, Chelsea.
Yeah.
You're going to concede goals. So is there a false nobility in that? Is it, to some extent, a cynical view from me about playing to the gallery, because we're going to go on our shields? We will not stop. This is the way that we're going to play. And the Tottenham fans will lap it up until they don't, which means when they go at the end of the season, they go, well, we didn't win anything.
I mean, I take it your mate Daniel will be quite happy, because this is exactly why Postecoglou got the job. This is probably what he said in the job interview. This is how I'm going to go about it.
But this can only happen post-Conte. Post-Mourinho, the timing, and I've said it before, is perfect, because the club was so dark. Everybody hated Levy. The players were all bone idle, lazy, unmotivated, uncommitted, not programmed for winning. Everything about the club was rubbish, as far as Conte and those in the certain sections of the media would have us believe. So Ange comes in and polishes it up a little bit, and polishes it up a lot, because they've obviously got themselves to second in the league.
Yeah.
But in order for him to kick on, there's going to have to a slight... This is not the SPFL. This is not other leagues. This is the Premier League.
Yes.
And it's an unforgiving league. And what you did for me yesterday is no good for me today. And ultimately, right now, what you've got is a moment in time where Postecoglou is thriving on his successes, thriving in an environment where everything has been so toxic and so bleak that he gets that extra bit of sheen. And I do admire it. And I do admire 95% of what comes out of his mouth. And I do think that he's the right person for Tottenham Hotspur in the here and now. And I do think probably if he keeps on progressing and gets better players to be able to get more depth in his squad and be able to change things up, that they might win something.
You see, last night when Ange said at the end of it, listen, mate, if we're down to 5, I'll still play that way. And all the little anoraks, of course, said, we couldn't possibly be down to 5 because the game wouldn't go ahead. Yeah. We got that. That was funny.
But that's playing to the gallery, isn't it?
Exactly. But I like what he did. Then when I popped it out saying, I find that quite refreshing, last night, are you kidding? Naive. You'll get battered 4-1 every time. There's one comment. If Manchester United say something like that, in other words, if we're down to 5, we'll still go for it, there'd be uproar on your show with Simon. Before you come in, Simon, this was Ange, and I liked what he said post-match.
That's who we are, mate. So even with 9 men, you're still going to go with that? Yeah?
Even with 5 men, mate, we'll have a crack. Well, that's who we are. We'll take away from that, and we're still in the stages of building a team here, and building a style of play. And I'm not going to chase some short-term fix for what I believe is going to be important for us in the long term.
Key component of that, we're still building a team now. We're building a culture.
Yeah, but he's not playing to the gallery there.
No. He's playing to an audience to some extent, because he's got, and the most sensible part of it is that he knows in the longer game, once what he's doing is changing a culture, a defeatist. We play a certain way, so he's prepared to say in the here and now, I'm not changing, mate. I don't care if we go down to 5 men. In a year's time, when he's been in the job for a year, and the situation changes, and ultimately he knows that the best way of dealing with the game is 9 men have to change the way they play. Yeah. He will change, not because he's prostituting his values, but because he will have instilled the culture, which means when he does change for an individual game, That doesn't become the default setting. 'Cause the problem is now, if he goes back to a certain style of play with Spurs, people are going to say, well, hang on a second, that's what we've seen before. So I understand precisely what he's saying.
Yes.
Let's get the culture right,
So
and
do
then
I.
I'll get the tactics and techniques right.
It's funny how the team that lost 4-1 makes the news this morning. Next up for Chelsea, incidentally, Manchester City. We'll see the cut of their jib then. But there's someone who's very close to Postecoglou getting in touch with me this morning. Jimmy's not trying to be better than Conte or Josie. It's just who he is.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.